What's going on, everybody? Chris and Leighton, or Leighton and Chris, LC, right? With Vintage Breaks Lunch Crew, Episode 8, Quarterbacks. What's going on, Leighton?
Not too much. Welcome to the Lunch Crew. That's right, LC.
Right.
Hope everyone is doing well. Looking forward to the holiday season. I'm fresh off of the Philly show. Their next show is in March, so if you want to check it out, you want to drive in, fly in for it, it's a good one. PhillyShow.com for all the details.
Do they go like Philly, Philly, like that Super Bowl play, audible? Philly,
No.
Philly? No, they're not. That'd be cool if they did. Anyway, speaking of the audible, that was a quarterback that made that audible. There's a reason, in particular modern football cards. If you go back into vintage, you'll see other players take the spotlight. You'll see Emmitt Smith take the spotlight. You'll definitely see Jim Brown, Walter Payton. Just stalwarts of the area, the vintage football market. But if you look at the modern, it's all about the quarterbacks. It's a sign how the game has changed, how not just the invention of the forward pass. We're way beyond that. We're to the domination of the forward pass, really. And the hobby market begins and ends with quarterbacks, it seems. Every now and then a running back can get hot and his cards can go somewhere. But you look at NFL card sales and you'll see Patrick Mahomes up there at the top because he's a signal caller. Because without a quarterback, teams don't really have a chance. Having said that, it's really tough to evaluate a quarterback. It's tough to look at one and know, hey, what do I have here? Do I have a star? Or do I have a guy who was really good in college? It's hard to figure out. And I wanted to kind of bring up a guy I was right about and a guy I was wrong about. I want to start off with the guy I was wrong about because it's more current. I was completely wrong about C.J. Stroud. I watch a lot of football. I played football in college. I really understand the game at a pretty high level, I think. And I was watching C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, and I'm seeing a lot of one check, one check, one check. Okay, drop back, one receiver. I don't see any decision making. Even when the chips were down and they were playing bigger teams like Georgia, no decision making. One read, one read, one read, and one read is the death knell for a quarterback. All of a sudden, he comes up to the Houston Texans. And when you play quarterback for the Houston Texans, there are challenges there that don't exist with a lot of other franchises. You are literally running for your life playing for the Houston Texans. They didn't go out and get offensive line. They didn't build. They did bring in like Tank Dell and some other like skill position talent. But the offensive line is pretty much the same. And how is this going to be any different? Is this guy more talented than Deshaun Watson? I don't think so. But lo and behold, we see C.J. Stroud making it work. And he's making it work with a skill set that I did not see in college. I'm seeing multiple reads. I'm seeing checks. I'm seeing audibles. I'm seeing just a game that I never saw in college. And I wish I had not have made the statement and the purchases that would make me think that C.J. Stroud is better than Bryce Young. I no longer think that. It's okay to be wrong. You just have to own it. But having said that, sometimes you're right, and I was right about a young man who I really like, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is another one of these super athletes, and it's okay to be a super athlete if you're a grown man like Jalen Hurts. When you're Kyler Murray, it doesn't work so well in the NFL. He'll have flashes. He'll never be that stable, consistent quarterback. I'm fortunate to have sold his Prism rookies in 10s at the high, and it's one thing that I just pat myself on the back for. It's great. You ever had that?
Well, it's funny. As much as some people are down on Kyler Murray, man, if I were the Jets, I would have loved to have him. But I do agree with you, Chris. I think that evaluating quarterbacks is really tough. And for someone who's listening to this episode who maybe it's just kind of like a fringe fan of the game of football, forget about collecting football cards. And Chris, I know that you used to play in college, as you mentioned, and I feel like we both have a really good grasp on the game. Unfortunately, I cheer for the Jets, so it's a topic for a different episode. Something to keep in mind if you're just like a casual fan of the game, man or woman, young or old, is the quarterback position in college. Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the average, you might have 3.5, 3.8 seconds, something like that. Whereas in the NFL, when you snap the ball, you have something like 1.8, 2.1 seconds. Am I quoting things that sound about right?
It's a vastly different game in terms of speed.
Yeah. So, point is, you could see why. I remember as a little bit of a younger individual, I remember asking, like, why are they doing all these different tests? And the reason why they're doing these different tests is because they're testing your stress. They
Yeah.
want to understand if analytically your brain can tie to your hands, can tie to your feet. And, people often talk about this whole hand eye coordination thing and what it means. Well, it couldn't be any more apparent to me why it's super important as a quarterback position. Because when you're talking about having the time to go from college to the pros, you can have the best arm. You can literally have the best legs. You can even be smart. But Chris, you have to put them all together.
Right.
And I think what we're seeing is that's the challenge. And forget about staying healthy. Of course, Kyler Murray's instance, that's a problem. But I'm saying, like, it's so much more difficult than people give it credit for. And I think, Chris, now that I'm involved in breaking, on behalf of Vintage Breaks, I also play fantasy football, follow the game of football, thankfully beyond the game, beyond just the Jets. It's apparent to me, when people say, Chris, I feel like if you're someone who thinks you know the NFL, a very popular thing to say is, well, the quarterback is good, but they have no offensive line.
Right.
Make no mistake, an offensive line can certainly protect you better, but it's not going to give you an average of 3.5 or 3.8 seconds like the way you would get in college. You're still going to have the ability to tie the brain with the brawn, with the ability with your legs, right? And be able to throw. And so I just wanted to paint that picture for those who are listening, Chris, not so much live, but, maybe later on. And by the way, Chris, just remind everyone, where can they go to easily find our content if they'd like to check out our other episodes of the Lunch Crew?
We got a full repository of this on iTunes, Spotify, and vblunchcrew.com, where you can view everything. You can view the summaries, the bios of your fine hosts. They're on that site too, and you can even click to see a link to the Vintage Breaks websites for some cards that we retail in the show. So everything's included there.
Great. Well, Chris, we could talk about quarterbacks for a whole episode. Maybe we'll talk about it more in the future, but I think we got our point across, which is it's not easy to assess. You've been right before, you've been wrong before, and guess what? It's going to happen again.
And you need
So,
elite. You need Joe Burrow, not Kirk Cousins. And there's a difference between Joe Burrow
yeah,
and
I would
Kirk
say so. Let
Cousins.
me know in the chat
Yeah.
who you guys think in the NFL right now. Forget about the vets, right? Like Aaron Rodgers, yeah. Do I hope he's excited for the Jets next year? Yes. But who do you think of the young kids, right, from Mahomes on down, from like 17, 18 on down? Do you like Josh Allen? Do you like Kyler Murray? For some reason, do you like Zach Wilson or Daniel Jones? Like, you have to have your head checked. But let us know in the comments who you think one or two of the top kids are in the game today that maybe some of us are overlooking, right? Because, Chris, everyone knows Joe Burrow at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But look who he was hurt. And then what's the kid's name? Browning that stepped up?
Yeah. But Browning had a great game. Of course, he's got Jamar Chase to throw to. So,
Listen, you still got to throw it. As we talked about, Chris, you still don't have a lot of time to do it. But with that, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about something very cool we recently did. Certainly, if you haven't checked it out, please do. Not just our website at vintagebreaks.com, but you could check out our live stream, which takes place 7 days a week on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/vintagebreaks. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so that way you get notified when we do epic things like open a 1980 Topps basketball wax box. It was wrapped by Baseball Card Exchange, and if you're not familiar with Steve Hart, he's a good buddy of mine. He not only, of course, authenticates unopened, he does sell it, so check him out on the web. But we ripped open a box, and we decided to sell it by the pack because waiting for the whole box to sell out of 36 packs would have just taken a long time. So we wanted people to have the chance to go for the Magic Bird rookie. We did get one Magic Bird rookie. We're waiting for the results from PSA, so we'll keep you posted. We also pulled several other Magic and or Larry Bird cards from that set. And if you have any suggestions about some other cool vintage you'd like to see us open, please let us know in the chat. But I'm going to leave you with this. I recently acquired a pack from the 1950s that we've never had before at Vintage Breaks, and it's going to be coming soon to our website. So stay tuned for that. Chris, if I had to throw out there before we move on, what's just one you have a wish, right? Forget about the cost. What do you want to open on camera?
Well, I mean,
Vintage.
everybody would want to open the 52 high, right? Everybody would
Sure.
open that. I got to be careful here because I know what the pack is and I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, it's true.
I
It's true.
can
You
say
do.
it is a pack that has never been offered in a break before, and I would not like you could have given me 20 guesses, I wouldn't have got it
It's
because
a good one.
it's that unique and it's that unexpected, and everybody's gonna love it. It's gonna be so fun. I'm like
It is.
I'm like looking at my airline miles for like coming up, and just
Participating.
maybe surprising. Hey, surprise! South from here today.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, once again, this is the Lunch Crew. It is our 8th episode. If you want to check out our other episodes and you're enjoying this content, please check out vblunchcrew.com. So, Chris, I know like we have every week, we have a handful of cards for sale. Generally, Chris goes vintage. Excuse me. Generally, I go vintage. Chris goes modern. One of these weeks, I'm going to throw them completely off,
Sure.
and I'm going to come with some modern. And you'll be like, wait, are these mine? No, no, they're mine. But without further ado, Chris, why don't we talk about a couple of the cards we have for sale this week?
Great. Well, the first one is this beautiful 33 Gaudy lefty O'Doul. That card is so sharp. In SGC4.
It does. It has really good eye appeal. Lefty O'Doul was a really solid ball player back in the day. He's pictured here with the Brooklyn Dodgers. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to read to you the back of the card, which, and Chris, if I could show it on screen.
Yeah. Lefty O'Doul.
Many of us, and I'm sure, Chris, you're probably in the same boat, but I wanted to ask. Many of us grew up reading the backs of our baseball cards.
Yeah.
Did you do that, Chris?
I absolutely did that. Like I've memorized several backs,
Sure.
particularly the Dale
So if you
Murphy.
take a look here, Lefty O'Doul, he twice led the National League in batting in 29 and 32. This is a 33 Gaudy. So last year he hit 368, which is obviously quite impressive. But this is what's so interesting. He first came into the big leagues with the Yankees as a pitcher,
Oh.
and he failed to make it. He was sent back to the minors. He won a berth with the Giants in 28 as an outfielder, and then he was traded to the Phillies in the next year, and then he joined Brooklyn in 31. So my question is this. Is it possible that he was the next Babe Ruth? I don't know much about Lefty O'Doul, but you're telling me that he started off as a pitcher, he didn't make it, and then he came back as a hitter and he made it, and he hit 368? Oh, it sounds quite impressive to me, Chris. What do you think?
I wonder if the internal scouting was like, hey, this guy can do it all. Is he another George? I mean, like that'd be interesting to read what scouts thought of Lefty O'Doul.
Well, I'm going to check it out. I'll certainly be discussing it next week. But if you have heard of Lefty O'Doul before and you have any thoughts about him, let us know in the comments. Because, Chris, right, you got to imagine Lefty O'Doul wasn't the only player who tried to make it in the 20s and 30s as a pitcher and maybe made it as a hitter. But he didn't just make it as a hitter, Chris.
Yeah.
The guy hit 368 in 1932.
Yeah. That's something for the Brooklyn Dodgers, who faced the stiffest of competition back then.
Absolutely. So anyway, he was 6'1", 6 foot tall, weighed a buck 80. So
That's a
not a,
substantial man for that era.
well, it was, but certainly not today. So anyway, this card's available for $225. If you're working on a set, if you're just trying, he wasn't, like I said, a better player of the time. This is a great type card. Really like the Brooklyn across the uniform there. And it's just a really nice shot from the 33 Gaudy set. Lefty O'Doul does have another card in the set. This is the one I do like a little bit more. But that is the scoop with the 33 Gaudy Lefty O'Doul.
All right, let me get back to our normal view. There we go. That's a beautiful card. The second card is, let me bring up one of mine. It is, here we go. This is a 2021 Flawless Baseball. So it's the
Nice.
MLBPA, not MLBP. So you see Chicago, not Chicago White Sox. But the cool thing about this, and I picked two cards that had similar circumstances today. This is a piece. When they buy these jerseys, they're signed. If you look in the jersey window, there's a piece of the Carlton Fisk signature right next to his actual signature on the card, and that's one of my favorite things.
Interesting.
Pudge, Carlton Fisk, vintage player, affordable cards, number 1 of 5. They put 5, but the other 5 probably don't have the autograph on the jersey.
Cool.
Even
And what
with
does
all
that
that,
cost, Chris?
$55. Even with all that, these things are
What?
steals. Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, these are cool cards to collect. I've always wondered why they weren't more valuable. But the market is what the market is. Regardless of how
Sure.
you think, you're one buyer. You're one buyer. Smokey Joe Wood came back as an outfielder after his pitching days were over. Very true. That was a
Appreciate the feedback. That's awesome.
yeah.
Thanks, Joe. By the way, if you haven't already, check out our 20th Century Baseball Shock Me page on Facebook. Some of the best baseball content out there.
Yeah. And your second card is a 1933 Tattoo Orbit R305 Geo Haas.
George Haas to you, Chris.
It says Geo
Uh,
on the slab. I don't know who this guy
I know it's short. So Georgie was 6'2", a buck 75, born in 1903. But really, I didn't offer the card because of George or Geo Haas. I offered it because I think a lot of folks don't really know about Tattoo Orbit. Tattoo Orbit was gum, and these cards were issued with a slab of gum and one card, and they're extremely condition sensitive. And they also happen to have very bright colors of the time period.
Yeah.
So there is multiple Hall of Famers in the set. Just for full disclosure, I have a Tattoo Orbit in my collection. I think you should too. The one that I have is a Hall of Famer. I'm a big type card collector. The Connie Mack is one of my favorite cards of the time period, not just from the set. And if you don't know what it is, Google it. Or Chris, if you could pull it up, check it out. 1933 Tattoo Orbit of Connie Mack. I think he has a hat on. It's an awesome card. But this card's $100. And if you want a type card from the set, it makes a perfect example for that.
Nice. All right, now we have, in a similar vein as to the Carlton Fisk, that's the Fisk again. Let me get this one up.
Sorry, Chris, before you do that, I'm going to show on camera here, just on the main one. I
Yeah.
did a little research and I found a sales sheet.
Oh.
Pictures of big league ball players. They were suggesting it was free because you'd buy the gum.
Yeah.
And you get a free card. Give me free cards all day long, baby.
Stick that in your bike spokes.
Exactly.
The next one, continuing the theme from the Carlton Fisk, we have another Hall of Fame catcher with the same type card. A game-used bat, piece of jersey, autograph numbered to 5, with the piece of the jersey having Rod Ree on the front, where he signed the jersey, and it has Rod Ree on the front, where it's got the cutout of the signed jersey. Another one that I have because I bought it because I think they're cool, and I have a lot of these because I that's what I look for when I look for memorabilia cards. I look for where they cut the autograph out. It's like
That's cool.
2 autographs for the price of 1. Who doesn't love that?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. Just Rodriguez. Could be anyone named Rodriguez. That's a very long list.
Exactly.
But this card, like the Carlton Fisk, is $55. Hall of Fame catcher.
Cool. Well, Chris, I'm gonna put something out there. If we don't sell one of them in the next 24 hours, I want to buy the Carlton Fisk. I will pay you personally, and I want to give it away through the lunch crew.
Great. We can do that.
I think it's super cool card for the value. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
You get a Hall of Famer with, a piece. The Fisk was the piece of the bat or the piece of the jersey?
A jersey and a bat.
Well, the jersey is not a game used.
Actually, they have the default statement that they're not from, but in the enclosed. Oh, okay. Actually, the enclosed game worn used memorabilia and autograph are guaranteed by Panini. So these are actual game used. These are actually
even cooler. Well, act quickly because if not, I'm buying the Fisky and I'm giving it away through the lunch crew.
Great. So that's the cards. What about the boxes cards come in? We've got some new ones coming out. I know you've seen.
Yeah, talk to me about the new releases. My favorite part of the show because I get to sit back, rub my belly, and learn something.
So Inception, Inception is normally like a spring release. Like Inception, you think Inception, this is the start.
Sure,
Not so much in 2023. Not so much in 2023. What Inception is known for, big, beautiful memorabilia pieces. And not only can you pull the Corbin Carroll, the Adley Rutzmans, and stuff like that, you can also pull the Shohei Otanis, the Aaron Judges in Inception. They are exceedingly rare. You'll get one, what they call a Group A veteran per case, and a Group A veteran can be Paul Goldschmidt, but it can also be Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. A lot of variance in the checklist. You've got to get extremely lucky. A lot of downside because there's a lot of there's something like 50 subjects on here. That's a lot. But like if it wasn't 50 subjects, it'd be, $500 a box. It's not $500 a box.
sure.
They're very beautiful cards. They do use too many sticker autographs for my liking, but they also use big, beautiful patches. Some of them aren't game used. Some of them, some series are. The industry with Upper Deck Exquisite figuring out they could do it one year with the rookie premiere program started, putting photo shoot photo shoot use stuff in products, and it perpetuates to this day. Uh, if you get one of those, look at it from no other aspect of this makes the card look really cool and unique. Because if you get a unique patch on the card, even if it's photo shoot used, it is still a unique card out of that run that's not going to be replicated in the rest of them. Like it still does make the card better. It looks sick. I hate to use I hate that word, but people use it all the
Crosby
time.
loves it.
Yeah, yeah, sick, sick. Mr. B said it was sick. um, but everybody likes to crap on photo shoot use and event use, and they're right. But it's also true that that does make that particular one card unique and cool and interesting. Next we have probably the biggest gamble. And when we say biggest gamble in sports cards, typically your mind goes to National Treasures. It's not necessarily true. National Treasures has 7 to 10 cards in it. Panini one in one basketball also is just a huge gamble because it's a huge price tag per card. When you're looking at stuff, you have to look at the price per contents. And Panini one in one delivers an encased autograph and another numbered card. Potentially there can be two autographs in there, but it's another numbered card. This is the Paolo Banchero Chet Holmgren class, not Wimbayama. But as we saw from an exquisite box or from a National Treasures box that we just opened, Paolo Banchero does happen, baby.
Yes, now I have a question for you
Mm-hmm.
because I can't be the only person who wants to know this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a legitimate question about modern product. Why a high end product, for example, like National Treasures, basketball, Ben Charles rookie year, which sells for thousands of dollars per box?
Mm-hmm.
I heard you just say, because I thought it was 8 cards. So I'm going to actually just correct you a little bit. I think it's 8 cards. Why, if it says 8 cards on the outside of the box, do some boxes contain more than 8 cards, meaning 9 or 10? How does that happen, Chris?
Well, they're hand collated in National Treasures and Flawless. National Treasures and Flawless are hand collated. They're not machined. You literally got a factory worker putting cards in packs, and the boxes have a certain thickness that'll fit in there. So redemption cards often, when they're filling the thickness, just I mean, lead to extra cards. Cards that aren't as thick often lead to extra cards. Like they got booklets. When there's a booklet in there, there's probably only be 7 cards. This year, I have yet to see a box this year with 7 cards. So when we're selling it, we're selling it with 7 cards because 7 cards has always been possible. This year, I'm seeing it at 10. Like I was actually going to bring that up. If we bring the product back in, maybe we adjust the math on that to 10 spots because.
But my question, though, Chris, is are they doing this on purpose to give you additional cards because you're saying it's hand collated at the factory,
Mhm.
or no, it's simply just because of the stack of the cards and they do it and like some of them have a little bit more or less? I'm trying to understand.
We don't really know the motives. So like when I've spoken to people about this, they go, well, we do it to just provide a little cooler experience for some boxes. This year, it does appear that they're sticking to the 10. In previous years, that's absolutely not the case. Just experience
No,
I've
I
seen
agree. We've
this
opened
year.
up a lot of 19 and 20 and well, it's interesting. So something to keep in mind because I want folks, especially Chris, if you're diving into this product, which is super high end, like National Treasures basketball, if you buy a box and you're, not participating in a break and you're doing it from the confines of your own home, and believe me, I think that's awesome too. But I want folks to be aware and not be alarmed that if you open a box and it has 9 cards, nothing's wrong. In fact, this is a common thing that's happening in National Treasures basketball. And that's why I wanted to bring it up today.
Great, great, yeah. National Treasure is a hell of a product. Panini One tries to capture national treasures, kind of like one encased card at a time, because the design is really similar. There are some differences. They'll use this canvas style matte finish in Panini One that's really cool. They'll put some holographic shadow box cards in Panini One that are really cool. Like we had a John Stockton autograph one year that had the spotlight autograph in it. That was a really cool looking card. Really cool looking card. But as the case with all sports cards, the cream does rise to the top. You'll see a card in National Treasures and a card in Panini One, and you'll think, oh, that Panini One card looks cooler. Then you'll look them up and you'll go, that Palo is $10,000 in National Treasures. The Palo in Panini One is three, and it's not going to make any
Mm-hmm.
sense to you. The reason is what you've got to go through to get that Palo in Treasures versus what you got to go through to get that Palo in Panini One.
Definitely. And Panini One is a super fun product. I agree with you, Chris. It's feast or famine. And with that, we're going to move on to the last portion of today's show, our 8th episode of The Lunch Crew. So I have 2 topics I want to cover, Chris. The first one is, and this is more of a, not just a public service announcement for, collectors, but I also, listen, I care very much about the hobby. I love what I do for a living, my businesses. Whether it be my son wants to do it when he's older or not is really immaterial to me. I hope he does, but I want to protect something that I've loved since I was a kid. And something that I see happening on social media, and social media, by the way, could be any of the following. And by the way, I'm sure there's some sites I have no idea about, but they could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, it could be TikTok, it could be a private group within a Facebook community. And it could be a Reddit community. It could be anything and everything to do with an online community. And so, what I wanted to share my thoughts on is that if you're someone who's in this space, you don't have to worry if you're an influencer or not, because that's a very, it's, you can argue one way or another if you are, or if the person sitting next to you is. But my point is, if you put out messaging, if you put out content, it doesn't matter what you want to call yourself, but you should be responsible. And so, what I mean, I want to give a shout out to be very clear, I like some of his episodes and I don't like other of his episodes, but that doesn't mean I won't listen. Sports Card Dad. He has a really interesting YouTube channel. He puts out a wide range of content. I don't love how long the beginning of his shows take, but I do respect that in the beginning of his shows, he tells you today's show is sponsored by such and such. And in case you're not aware, sponsored means he's receiving some wampum, some money, some cards, some free boxes, something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why I appreciate that is because if he's, for example, sponsored, that show that day is sponsored by ComC, checkoutmycards.com, great company, great website. You'd like to know that if he's giving information about that. So what I wanted to at least share with you folks is at the moment, none of our shows, meaning the Lunch Crew, Leighton's Loft, Trading Card Therapy, are sponsored by anyone else other than Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, as well as Otia Sports. But to be clear, when I say sponsored in that case, they are not receiving any monies. There's no monies passing back and forth. It is simply just good business practice to plug our other businesses when we're talking about on our podcast, for example, the Lunch Crew, which is related to the hobby. I'll say sponsored by Just Collect. I'll say sponsored by Vintage Breaks, so on and so forth. And that's because one or more of the owners of those respective businesses are involved in the production of the show. But to be clear, we are not receiving any financial compensation at the moment. And if that changes in the future, I will announce on here that today's show is sponsored by such and such. And by the way, that means XYZ, that we are receiving free boxes to give out, whatever the case is. And so the reason why I'm sharing this information with you folks and I'm being as transparent as I possibly could be is I'm hoping that other folks out there on my side of things in the hobby, once again, you can call yourself whatever you like, but if you're talking about the space, well, if you've been given a free dinner, if you've been given a paycheck, if you've been given some sort of gift that's expensive, meaning I'm not talking about a free pack of gum, but I'm talking about, who knows, it doesn't matter, something substantial. Well, then you should mention that today's show or this segment is sponsored by such and such company, or to be fair, it could be an individual. And the reason why I say that is because you want to try to create as much of a safe space in our business and hobby as possible. And the reason being is because sometimes when people lose, they don't come back. But if you're educated and you know what you're getting yourself into, people can accept a loss a little bit more easily. And let's be clear here, right? In the space right now, there is absolutely prices on average are down. So we just want to make sure that everyone's being real about everything. And so if you talk about a particular product or a service that you like for a company, by the way, if you're not being sponsored, that's totally cool also. But I'm just merely suggesting that if you are being sponsored in any way, right, don't get cute, not trying to toe the line and say, well, that guy paid my mom's first boat payment. Well, he didn't give me the money. Sure, he may not have given you the money, but you were clearly sponsored by that individual. And, it's funny because I used to love the movie Blue Chips growing up, with Shaq and Penny Hardaway. It was a great movie about college basketball. There's all this, money going on. And I kind of feel a little bit that's what's going on in our space. Like, for those who are in the know, they know. But we're trying to quote fanatics, 10x the hobby. One of the ways to forget about 10x, to just increase the amount of people that are going to be in the space, collecting, buying and selling, flipping, investing, etc., is not just education in the sense of this is what a product is, this is what a set is, this is why a Babe Ruth Gowdy or Baltimore News card is important. But you need to be transparent so that folks can understand what messaging they're receiving and let them decide who and what people, places, and companies they would like to trust.
Right. You have to know the risks and the real rewards going into it. Just put your cards on the table, guys. It's not hard.
Absolutely. So with that, I wanted to cover one more thing. I'm fresh off the Philly show, and I wanted to be clear that it was a great time. Unfortunately, my son, who got sick on that Friday, was not able to make it. And card shows are still super fun. So to be clear, as long as you have enough money to get in for admission, you don't really need to buy anything. And candidly, you could probably bring a snack or your own lunch, like in a little knapsack. You don't even have to buy food. So if you're looking for a wholesome time for $8, $10, $12, and you don't want to spend anything else, the Philly show is a wonderful experience, and I highly recommend it. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is also to let you know that to get something out of it, you got to put something into it. And it's a lot of fun no matter what. We were talking about this before we went live today. Card shows can be like similar to college. Because in college, you don't really even need to go to class to have fun, right? So at a card show, you don't really need to be prepared to have fun. You could just show up. Literally, you could show up unshowered, wearing yesterday's clothes, with a $20 bill in your pocket, with a granola bar, and you're probably good to go, right? It doesn't matter. But if you want to get something out of it as a consumer, as a collector, as a investor, when I say putting in work, I mean bringing a box of cards with you that maybe you're not even looking to sell, but you might trade if the right opportunity comes up. Or, and I did this as a kid, it was very nerdy, I know that, but I'm sharing with you a little bit of insight when I was a kid, and I still do it now, but it's just a different type of agenda. I would create an agenda for the show. I would say, I want to complete my 85 top set. I want to talk to Mr. Such and Such. I want to look for a Mickey Mantle rookie. And I treated it very seriously. And I'm not saying it's necessary, but if you look at the show, I've been corresponding with several people from the convention that are customers. I give them a lot of credit. A lot of people say they're going to follow up and, The guy's asking for a further, a bigger scan of this card. Hey, do you have any flexibility? Can I trade you? I didn't bring any cards with me. My point is, being prepared doesn't always mean going there with a box of cards to trade. It means being conscious. It means being awake. You're ready to give your effort to the convention because you want to get something out of it. And by the way, getting something out of it doesn't have to be a card. It doesn't have to be a set. I know for me, on that Saturday, because I had to leave early to get my son, I knew, Chris, I was going to run out of time to quote unquote walk around and buy, right? So you know what I decided to do? Soak it up, man, and just enjoy being there. I had some wonderful conversations with Sharon. Shout out to her from Black Jade Wolf. We chatted for a while. Steve Rosenblum from SMR Collectibles. My buddies Derek and Lee from Heritage. I don't even know that we talked exclusively about business. It was about the holidays. It was about life. And so for me, you might say, like, well, wait, what the hell does it have to do with being prepared for the convention? It's because I was awake. I was conscious of what I wanted out of it. I didn't feel like it was in a rat race to make the most money possible before I got out of there. I wanted to enjoy it. So figure out, and that's what I want to close with today, whether it be you're going to a card show or you're just sitting at home today and or to be fair, you're at work and you're taking half your lunch hour and you're spending it with the lunch crew and you're going to spend your other half on eBay. Sometimes take a step back and go like this. It'll do a lot of good for you. Happy holidays, all. We'll see you next week for what? Lunch Crew number 9, Chris?
Lunch Crew number 9.
I'm excited. We're going to be of legal drinking age before we know it.